Hello! So today we're going to be looking at Charlemagne's Empire. And if you don't know who Charlemagne is, Charlemagne was a Germanic king who ruled large parts of Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire in the 700s and 800s AD. Though his empire didn't last that long, it was still really important. It only actually lasted about 26 years. When Charlemagne died in 812 AD, it then passed on to his son, and his son died in 840 AD. Now, when Charlemagne's son died, he had 3 sons, so his empire then split in 3, and it was then split in even more after they died, and that was kind of the end of his empire. But it still was very important, even though it was rather short-lived. So what did Charlemagne's empire do for Europe? It stabilized an unstable Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire. It established the dominant religion, or dominant relation, between the Catholic Church and the kings of Europe. And it also spurred a Carolingian Renaissance, with Carolingian means relating to the dynasty of Charlemagne, and Renaissance meaning cultural, scientific rebirth. So, stabilizing Europe. After the fall of the Roman Empire in the mid-400s, or the fall of the Western Roman Empire, as you can see, Rome split in 2 around the year 300 AD. And it was only the western half that really fell. And it fell after various Germanic barbarian incursions into regions such as Italy, France, and Spain, and even northern Africa. And these barbarian kings had a different sort of sense of loyalty than the Romans did, because the Romans had a very nationalistic state. We kind of view nationalism as a more modern thing, but it was very much existing in the time of the Romans. So someone living in Roman France would consider themselves a Roman, and someone living in Roman like Libya or Tunisia also considered themselves Roman. They saw themselves less than as an individual, and they all upheld this idea of Rome. But the Germanic barbarians had a different sense of loyalty, and they kind of established what would be feudalism, or the idea that you were loyal to the person immediately above you. So you might, as a peasant, might be loyal to your king, or to your lord, who was loyal to his king. So, although feudalism provides short-term stability, it isn't very good for long-term stability. And we'll see that when looking at the Frankish kingdom. So the Frankish kingdom is mostly what is modern-day France. And the first Germanic barbarians to take over France were the Merovingians. And they had a long series of really weak and short-lived kings. And this isn't good in feudalism. Feudalism works if you have a king who reigns for a long time, which provides a lot of stability. But if you have a lot of short-reigning weak kings, then it doesn't work like that. And this is where Charlemagne's dynasty steps in and provides a good, strong ruler to sort of control this huge mess of this unstable Frankish kingdom. Along with that, Charlemagne also established the relation between the Church and Europe. So, when Charlemagne was starting to come to power, the Pope was starting to feel a little bit of pressure from the Germanic barbarians who controlled Italy, and they were called the Lombards. He was also feeling pressure from the still existing Eastern Roman Empire. And the Pope really didn't want to belong to either of these groups, either the Lombards and the Romans. So he called to Charlemagne to come help him out. And Charlemagne marched through Lombard-controlled Italy and saved the Pope. Now this set a precedent as it established that rulers of Europe were underneath the Pope. Right? So this means that if any person in Europe wanted to be king or wanted legitimacy in becoming king, then they needed the approval of the Pope. And this also worked vice versa. If the rulers and kings of Europe lost the approval of the Pope, then this meant that anyone had the free reign to just overthrow them with almost no penalty. And this was all because Charlemagne allowed himself to sort of be controlled by the Pope and be crowned the new ruler of this Western Rome. And finally, Charlemagne also spurred what would become the Carolingian Renaissance. So this is a quote taken from the early lives of Charlemagne, which was sort of this biography written by one of Charlemagne's closest advisors named Einhard. And as reading this quote, you can see that he wanted his people, his closest advisors, to become perfect. He wanted them to become perfect culturally, scientifically, and theocratically. Although Charlemagne himself actually couldn't read, but he understood the importance of knowledge and learning, and so he took people from England, from Austria, from Ireland, from Spain, from Italy. He took all these great thinkers from all over Europe and brought them to his court so that they could think and produce great works of art and literature for him, because he really understood the value of culture, literature, and science. And against popular opinion, the medieval times really weren't a dark age. They were actually full of science and culture and such. And a lot of this can be linked to Charlemagne and his Carolingian Renaissance. So that's sort of the brief idea of how the Charlemagne's Empire worked and why it was important. So I hope you learned something, and thanks for listening.